Hello.
What's up, brother? How
Not
you doing?
much.
Long time no see in person.
I know, right? We were
What?
lucky enough to do this first two rounds of the tournament in person together.
Yeah,
It was a blast.
5 days of badassery.
Yeah, it was. I
Probably
was not.
probably not proper sleep.
No, I was not. I was not ready. I was not in condition for what we tried to take on. You were much more successful than I. You were motivated.
I was motivated.
I was dragging, but we made it through.
You're great. You're great.
Memorable weekend for sure. Ups and downs, way more ups than downs. Um, we have some stories. We have some, just want to recap first two rounds. Tell you, how our weekend went. If anyone's interested, and I hope that anyone that's out there consuming this, they had a great weekend and it's as memorable as ours. I'm sure that there are a dozen other NCAA tournament opening weekends with better games and just upsets and crazy shit. But like this will be the opening weekend that I'll always remember. So it's my favorite of all time. So sucks for you if sucks for anyone else out there that can't say that, but I can. So
Yeah,
I'm better than you.
it was phenomenal. I mean, in my case, like I've been to Vegas a whole bunch on them. We've been to Vegas together.
That was a pretty good one too, I guess.
That was pretty good, but different scenario. Hilarious. Like this was different because it was like just like really you and me and my sister. She was around for a bit, but like it was just good for us to like sit there and hang out and just the two of us and not a whole lot of other distractions. I don't know.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like Vegas is awesome and it's an experience, and everyone should. If you're into the tournament, you should do it at least once. And I took your advice and I went. But I don't think you can be as locked in. There's just so much going on. If you just sit and you can sit with your buddy and just consume all the games in the opening rounds, you're gonna get better at picking your bracket next year if that's your goal. You're gonna get better at wagering games if that's your goal. It's probably going to motivate you to watch more games going into March next year. So there is value just to kind of sitting and consuming it all. And that's what we did. But I feel like you had a phenomenal, we put all your picks out there, and we'll go into detail, before we preview the Sweet 16 coming up tomorrow, which is crazy. This week is flying by, but we'll go over what kind of damage you did, because it was all documented. If you're following us at Franchise JLove, it's all on there. You guys are missing out on free money. Sorry if you're not. Those that are, you choose to partake in Devin's picks, you're doing just fine.
But after the ramen opening, that was a very soft opening.
Yeah, you can do that because
winning sense, honestly. I think.
Yeah, no, I had no problem doing that because I know everything is big picture, and you do your homework. I would put you up against anybody as far as doing your homework and understanding, just having a feel for these games. And I think that I look at this, you have kid, we both have kids, and a lot of people out there, have kids. And like, I think the best advice I give them is like, listen, if you approach anything like school, if you're good at school, if you're bad at school, don't approach it this way. But if you're good at school, you study, and you sit down for the test and it's a breeze. You should be confident sitting down that everything. And I feel like, this bracket, quite honestly, there's always those kind of nerves, but once we started getting into it, and we talked actually a week ago today, last Wednesday, before the game started, as tired as I was, you drove, 8+ hours to get here. Picking those games and even picking the number of upsets we did on our bracket, and it's on wax, it's all there. It was kind of like shooting fish in the barrel, just because we had done our homework, quote unquote. Sitting down for this test, it was nothing. You had a great feel for what the test would be, and that's the easy part. We didn't have to play the fucking games, but it's really cool to watch stuff play out and how it plays out. And if it didn't play out like we thought, you can easily identify why it didn't. And it's just a cool thing. If you're gonna have a hobby, it should be this enjoyable. So that's how I felt about the weekend. The opening weekend.
Well, it was great, and obviously we threw some money down on it. Not crazy, insane money, but we had a lot of fun stories to go along with it. It certainly gives you a certain angle and a little bit different level of excitement. I honestly recommend almost anybody really doing it, because even if you have a very small amount of money on something, it just gives you that much more. I don't know, like it's just more of like, not, I wouldn't say like a rush, but I'll say like if you're so much more engaged in a situation when, even if you have some rooting interest outside of just an upset or what have you, because everybody, like, they'll get into bracket, might be 10, 5, 20, 25, 50, usually you get more than that, but most people's brackets are probably like less than $25 if I had to guess.
Yeah.
So you're talking about, even if you
nobody's playing for the money though, they're playing to be right. They want to be the smartest person in the room. Yeah. That's human nature.
And I think it doesn't matter with the team. It is really, literally, the great thing about it is, like, it doesn't matter with the teams. The names change all the time. And obviously a lot of the same names are in it, but their seeding, their draw, who they play, other matchups. A lot of the smaller schools, they're changing in and out. Who's going to get in. You look at a team like Indiana State, probably should have got in. Virginia, probably not. Indiana State's now playing in the semifinals of the NIT. And, clearly they have the goods to beat some teams, and some team probably most likely didn't want to play a team.
Bit of a soft field, though. A lot of people didn't go.
Yeah. It's true. That's true. There are several opt-outs of high major teams are like, we're not playing in this crap. So, you do have some of that. So there's a level of motivation. But just kind of like tagging on what you had to say, doing the brackets are just like fun in general. I mean, there are people that do brackets that have zero interest in watching college basketball. Like you said, there's an office pool that get in it, just because, and it's something, and it really, in a lot of ways, is very much a crapshoot. But at the end of the day, it was super, super chalky this year.
Yeah.
So honestly, the sports books, we did very well, but like we really could have. Normally would probably do even better. And it's just, you got, because, identifying a team that's really likely to get an upset and then having them carry that out, was obviously two different things. But I feel like a lot of the things are always the same ingredients when it comes to having an upset come to fruition.
Yeah.
And as far as that goes, a lot of those things still happen, but there were just a lot of, I don't know, like a play here, play there. There's a lot of games like that. And then obviously, I think ultimately, everybody actually was watching the tournament. They want to see upsets early, but then chalk late, which is sort of like what we've got, because no one wants to see. I mean, obviously, Purdue has killed it to this point, and we played two very good teams. I mean, obviously Grambling State, you're going to have them outmatched, but outclassed. But as far as like Utah State goes, like they won them. They won their conference. The Mountain West, which got 6 teams in. And it's a very difficult conference. And they had the player of the year in that conference.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is, like, they have one of the best coaches. He actually just recently took the Washington job, like literally right after the tournament. And which I actually mentioned to you. I told you, like, I heard he was going to take that job. Like, remember me telling you that, like, I was like, I think this is when that game was going on. I was like, I heard he's going to be the next coach at Washington. And he's playing games here for Utah State. So I don't know if his publicist or his agent or someone like that or whatever, like, hey, we're, let's get some better. I don't know how that happened. Probably something like that. But it's like, we should know about that while they're still playing their game. Or before even that, because I read that somewhere and I'm like, that's wild. But anyways, they're a really, really good team. And people don't understand, like, once it was like 25-24 and the players got settled in and they kind of figured out what they needed to do, like, to readjust to their defensive assignments, we just turned the water off and it was just like bang, bang. And they made shots. We made them take tough shots. And in the beginning part of the game, they made the tough shots. But it gets to a point where you honestly, if Purdue's locked in like that, you're going to have to make so many tough shots just to stay in a game.
Yeah.
If we get it going like that, it's frightening. And I honestly didn't even think that was like the best Purdue's played. Now, if you look at like the result and what we could have done and, pulling players out at the end and what that score could have been, I mean, we were certainly hooked up on the defensive end and shooting fairly well from three, but like honestly, I think we have the capability of doing that to anybody in the tournament. If like, especially if we don't call the dogs off, like, if I would have told you that Purdue, Braden Smith gets in foul trouble on like 2 bogus fouls. The last one was totally bogus. That was ridiculous. And he goes to the bench and we extend the lead to like 16 points at halftime without him playing. Zach, he was on the bench for a little bit period of that time too. Like, we extend the lead from one moment he's gone out. We were only like barely ahead when he was in the game. And we actually salt the game away without him in the game. Like, just think about like how good Purdue, like early in the year, if you'd have told me that out, like when, Braden Smith could talk over, like, you start getting a little worried because he's really the one that runs the show. Like you would anybody's point guard. Like you would, UConn loses Newton, Kolek, Marquette, obviously like it goes on, heck, anybody. I'm missing like Gonzaga, Nembhard. Like, you get any of these really great point guards and they aren't playing. You just, you're almost, it's very hard to win because they just set everybody else up for all the stuff they do. But, and they just pretty smacked him in that mouth right in the beginning of the second half. And then it basically was over going at halftime. You see the body language of the players. They're like, we can't foul this guy anymore. Like, he's just too much. And then everybody else just starts cooking and the ball moves. It was a thing of beauty. Like, I mean, you don't usually see people. Like, there's a lot of times you see occasionally like that huge upset with a 16 versus 1 or 15-2. Not upset, but like a huge, like, kill a team on the point spread. This was like an 11-point spread. We won by 40. And he came out at 12 minute mark. Everybody else came out with 10. And the walk-ons and such, and extending that lead and scoring the most points in Purdue history in an NCAA tournament, and the biggest margin of victory, and one of the 4 biggest ones ever. So, and that's like first round stuff in the second round. So, like a very quality opponent. So, anyways, go ahead and
I have a bit of structure here. We're gonna cover Purdue, and we can actually start there if you want.
Structured up.
There's so many good games. They're in the past. It's over, but I just wanted to go through and highlight, and certainly we can add on to it, but kind of my top 5 moments of the weekend as far as games, and just some of the teams are still in it, some are not. Like I said, we'll preview the Sweet 16 here to finish up the show, but if you want to start with Purdue, let's start there. That, both Purdue games were definitely within my top, in my top 5 moments from the weekend. So this is ours. This isn't, you're not going to get this anywhere else. So we'll set the stage for Purdue Grambling, what that looked like. You want to start there?
Yeah, sure.
So we were in West Lafayette for this game, or Lafayette, if you're familiar. Well, we were in town for the game.
We were back in our hometown.
Yeah, so I know that was exciting for you, not having, just having, fans around. and just kind of that atmosphere. What were your thoughts on the game personally and what you saw?
Well, early on, you've got the whole weight hanging over Purdue of, being the second team ever to lose to a 16th seed in the NCAA tournament last year. They've been told about it 3 million times since the end of that game. They had to carry the guilt or whatever, the disappointment of not being able to win that game with a very, very good team, mind you, a team that was ranked one in the country the year before, and then won a lot of last year, and then won obviously this year. So you have all the you have the hardware getting you another Big Ten championship. You win it by 3 games, just like you did last year. You're obviously Purdue's. Anyone that's watched Purdue, they're a much better team, much different team, even though they retain a lot of the same players. But you still get in that game, and Grambling State, they their coach, they won the play-in game, so they already had a game under their belt. They had to win. They had to go to overtime and win that game. So you already have, I think it's similar to the Friday Dickinson. I don't know if they had overtime, but it's one of those things where they end up really, you get that game under your belt, and so now you've got that win. You've got some a little bit more extra confidence, and you're going to come out. You're not going to be as rusty as a team that hasn't played, in a few more days past that. And so you're going up against that a little bit. And then obviously the game is clearly like it's an Indianapolis heavy Purdue crowd. Purdue, because of the way they did it in the sessions, people were getting out of the game. They had to clear the whole arena and then bring in and then open it up to the fans coming in, which is like all Purdue fans. So there are a lot of the Purdue fans weren't even in their seats until the under 8-minute media timeout in the first half. So a lot of the excitement and the energy of the stadium, or the arena wasn't even full because there's still people trying to get to their seats, which they got to get that fixed the next time. Because I heard listen to local radio, like up there local radio, that they were really worried about like clearing that out because in the past when they've had those events, they have a hard time getting the fans of that third session in because they have to clear out the thing. So I heard that might actually be a problem, and it turned out to be a worse problem. I thought people might miss like 4 minutes, like a little bit of time. They missed like damn near the first half. So some of it was the crowd might not have been able to be like quite as engaged because they weren't in the stadium really, weren't all the way in the arena yet. Which that shouldn't really affect like the Purdue team. They're good enough; they should handle the business that way. But just the whole stigma of everything that went down, you're just going to be a little bit tight, I think, in general, because the other team they're gonna think they can beat you until you prove that you can't. And so as Purdue gets settled in the game, makes some adjustments, they start pulling away in that game. I think they, at some point, they certainly broke Grambling's will. I don't know how early that was. It might have ended up being at halftime. Might have been early in the second half where we felt like, hey, I don't think we ever thought we were going to lose the game by any stretch of that.
No.
But it was a thing where you want to get a little separation to prove a point to yourselves, if not the whole rest of the country, that this is a different squad and this shit ain't going down like that again. And so it takes some fortitude to do that, because if you look back at Virginia when they lost the year after they lost to 16 and won the whole thing, they were down at halftime in their game. The next year. So like they really didn't handle the adversity well. Now they rallied the troops and said, this is enough is enough. But that underdog thought they could beat him the whole time, just like the team did the year before. So that speaks to the mental toughness of Purdue this year, clearly. And so they end up it was a 27.5-point spread, 26.5 for some. We had, I don't know if you want to segue into this part or whatever. Do you want to segue into this part or just talk about the game and then go back to
it? What part are you talking about?
About the whole 27.5 to cover type deal.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, well, anyways, so Purdue was favored by 27.5, and we didn't have them straight up, but we had them on a parlay in the local bar. I used to be bartending there for years with the guy that owns the bar now. Great local place, Walt's Other Pub. So one of the owners and I, both the owners and I are good friends with it, but one of them I worked with for years, and he's the owner, and he was bartending that night. And so everybody at the bar, a lot of people at the bar came up to me, and because they remember me from 10 years ago being the bartender there for like a decade. That people come up to me and several conversations, which was awesome. Being back hometown, being really appreciated that way, I thought it was awesome. Actually, it was one of my favorite parts of the whole weekend because it's just cool to know that you've impacted some people's lives in a way that like they really like who you are, to go out of the way to say hello to you or whatever you want to do. So anyways, it's kind of like a rounded out, half, like a big, kind of wraparound bar around one side of it, just like a semicircle, whatever. Goes around the horn, and most everybody at the whole bar knew who I was, and so Ben had said, I told Ben, I've got Purdue 27. We got Purdue 27.5 on a parlay. We could really, it would be nice to get a little way to this finish off a parlay so you can win some money. So, Purdue's up by 25, 26. I think Colvin missed a dunk. There's 2 minutes left. So you're thinking man, you need this because you're just not getting, it's only going to go down from there. And Purdue had already kind of cleared out the bench quite a bit. So, because it became abundantly clear Purdue was going to win the game because they kept it at that 20-some mark for a long time. And Grambling State still playing really, really hard. But, you at 27.5, something got a little bit better number. That was a last minute number. So it's kind of was the highest it probably got. And so, anyways, he tells some people, and the news kind of spreads like wildfire, we got a parlay or a bet on this game. So now we have 40, 50 cats at the bar all the way around, knows that we have 27.5. It's this bar is like Cheers. It's a lot of fun. Everybody knows your name type deal, So it was fun because now I've got the whole bar. I mean, not the whole restaurant, but some of the restaurant too. But the entire bar basically, and the bartender and everybody else rooting for this to come through because Purdue's winning the game. Handily, the game's over, as far as that goes. And so we miss a dunk. They take it on a breakaway, go the other way, and they score. So now I think it's might be at 20. I think it's at 25. I can't remember if I don't think we scored at that point, but something happened where it looked very unlikely. It might have even been 23. I think it was 25. So they get it. So rather than us that putting us ahead, I think it might have been 28 at that point. That would have made it 30. Now you get a little bit of leeway with 2 minutes left. If you miss some free throws or something happened, you're still covering barely by the skin of your teeth. Well, they ended up making another bucket, and somehow I think we got in a layup.
Free throws.
Is it free throws? So we get it to
where
I
believe so.
Mathematically, now we're up 25, and it's well, at least there's a chance with a BS 3-pointer from a walk-on or somebody else that the odds are terrible they're going to cover.
It was 45 seconds, so we would have had. I mean, we could have not shot and taken the shot clock violation. So,
which we have
shot their free throws. I think it was 45 seconds.
Yeah,
and you go through the shot clock, and by the time you go through the shot clock,
there's
we were able to get a shot off. So they were definitely working the ball around.
Yeah, so they worked the ball around, and all of a sudden, I think Carson Barrett, walk on. His dad was a stud at Purdue, really good player at Purdue. He bangs in this three, with almost this kind of wind up looking shot,
god awful form.
I mean, it just didn't look right.
It's not aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah, and I'm sure he's a very good shooter, but I don't know if it was this the way he got or whatever it was. It didn't look very good.
No.
It looked kind of cockeyed coming out of his hand. He drains his three. We go up to 28, so now we're covering. But now there's 20 seconds left, and they're running it up. They're running it they're bringing it up the court.
We just hit a 3 up 25, and then now we're up 28.
Yeah.
You think Grambling? They're if you think Grambling is not going to shoot it, you're out of your mind. But
yeah.
What do you say to that?
Everybody's going to go jack this up or take the lane or get an easy or something. It's the last game of your season. So, it's like, what, so the coach could be like, yeah, suspend, like, you're not going to get me. What trouble are you going to get in? I mean, so it doesn't even, this point, you just go rogue and it doesn't, what are they going to say? So this is where, I don't know, this should be put on t-shirts. Anywhere that bar would buy a t-shirt with this on after this event. But it looks like he's at first going to kind of dribble it out. And then he kind of makes it he's down to 20 seconds, gets down to 10 or 12. It's one of those things where he wasn't it didn't seem like he was sizing up the shot clock, just like he was going to dribble it out. So after we banged a 3 with walk-ons, I was like, show some class. As far as the ears could hear across the bar, everybody starts rolling because it's when you're up that much, it's just the irony of it. It's just hilarious because show some class because I'm just trying to debate. But obviously we had just hit a 3, and once again it was by a walk-on, so it's he has a tournament memory for his lifetime. So yeah, Matt Bader's not going to care about that. Plus they were already in, so it wasn't like you wanted to call a timeout and recycle players in. They were all in the game, so it wasn't so that's the other reason you're not trying to get anybody else in the game. And so this guy goes to make a move, and I believe he chucks up a 3 and he misses it. We get the air ball, and I've lost so many bets where someone has done some tomfoolery like this, where they hit a 3 that's meaningless or drive to the basket or something that's just terrible. And it's excruciating when it doesn't go that way, and you're thinking well, at that point there was a 3% chance of us when we got down to it was 25 or 20, whatever it was, for us to cover the spread was miraculous in its own right. So the fact they even made a shot to give us a chance, it always made it exciting. So show some class. Everybody starts rolling and laughing.
You were dead serious, though. It wasn't. You were dead serious.
Oh, I mean, I was serious from my bet standpoint, but I was just trying to be funny.
No,
I was saying it to be hilarious, and it was, but just the irony of it. If you don't know me, it's apparently if you do know me, but it was a very funny moment. Of course, the whole bar goes crazy because we catch their air ball or whatever it was, or get the rebound, and then we run the clock out, and with a few seconds left, which was awesome. It was one of those dirty miracle covers. I'm sure it was on Bad Beats, on Scott Van Pelt. I love that segment of his stuff. But anyways, ended up covering that game. Awesome being back at that awesome Walt's other pub establishment. Best wings in the world. Great bartender. I mean, Ben's the best. So it's one of those things where
Russian lager.
Yes. We had done we did an Irish car bomb before the game, one after the game. Good times. I think you might have actually been in a pretty good place there for a minute.
Yeah, I was hammered.
Yeah. Well, there you go. So it was a lot of fun. My sister was there watching the games with us, and she knew people, neighbors or such, friends of neighbors or something like that. So anyways, this is good seeing everybody else and having great food and a great time. And, obviously went back the next day too. So anyways, ended up going, enjoying that game and hitting that on a parlay. We had that particular night on the way to Purdue. Also hit a nice little 2-team money line parlay. So it was kind of a nice, good way to end the Friday night, obviously Purdue. Going on to so Purdue, that was Friday night. So then Purdue advanced to the second round, and now they're playing Utah State, who just handled TCU. And Josh and my sister and I, we drive down to the Indy area, just a few blocks from where they were playing the games, and we went to a place called Bottle Works in the garage, and it was awesome. I mean, if you were down in the Indy area and you want to see awesome different cultural cuisines from everywhere, country, and all of it was outstanding. and there's fun bars there too. And then across the way, there's kind of like fun bowling, like pins.
Pins. It's called
pins.
Pins.
It's called Pins type.
Right across the street from the garage.
Yeah, and that's really awesome. And they've got like an awesome couple bars in there and tons of TV. So if you're looking at like a fun hangout for kids, adults, everybody included, it's hard to beat that, you know.
Yeah,
Food-wise, off the chain. I mean, the place was great.
It's different. It's a different setup. It's not your typical Buffalo Wild Wings, screens everywhere. I mean, there's a couple TVs, and you're not going to get
really good.
Yeah, good food, ridiculous bartenders.
Lettuce is not $2.
Conceived at Purdue Barnes.
Yes, the farmhouse.
That fucking guy.
His name.
I don't know.
We have a fun segue there, but anyways, it was great. We actually threw a pretty decent straight up bet on Purdue minus an 11.5. Once again, humongous Purdue crowd there, overwhelming Purdue crowd. The game before it was that Marquette game that was just like a battle.
It was a good game.
Really good game. So they were treated two pretty well. If you're a Purdue fan, two really good games. Like the first game was a good game, second game obviously, and early, you know, Utah State, you know, sprinkled drawing up this stuff, and the guard play was great, and you know they had a really good game plan. And I think once Purdue kind of figured that out, what they wanted to do, we took some things away. Played actually an excellent defensive game in my opinion. They did, you know, miss them. We forced them tough shots, which they missed. But I think we just went on that run after Braden Smith, you know, gotten the second foul, which both were probably cheap, but the second one was ridiculous. They called off the foul. The guy grabbed his arm and all he does is strike his arm off. Total flop, but whatever. So they ended up really extending the lead with him out of the game, which is like a great sign if you're a Purdue fan, because now you've shown that like you can not only just hang around in a game with him, and there's been games where Edie, same thing. It's like, where's the scoring going to come from? Where's this going to come from? And it's almost like the addition of, you know, Colvin and Heidi. Heidi was redshirted last year, and Colvin was a true freshman this year. And just Matt Painter playing 3D chess again, bringing these guys along. Heidi's been involved in the game plan a lot. Colvin's been in games at the beginning of the season, but he goes like 3 or 4 games, wasn't in a game, then does really well. I think a lot of that is just because, like, defensively, Matt Painter trusts him now, especially if you want to win some of these tournament games against who you have to go up against. You have to have guys on the court that can score to stretch people out, and some athleticism. And Heidi and Colvin added a wrinkle to this team, especially more recently Colvin, that they've not really deployed all season long on a consistent basis.
Well, I wonder, not to cut you off, but I think that the single biggest reason Purdue failed in the tournament the last 2 years, especially last year, was Braden and Lawyer hitting a wall just as freshmen.
For sure.
And I think that Painter had a luxury of, I know that Heidi's a redshirt freshman, but, you know, he's a freshman, you know, as far as, you know, he's been dealing with injuries prior to that. And that's probably, you would know better, but I think that's a big reason why he was redshirted. And I think that it afforded, you know, having the depth on this team this year with Lance Jones, you know, and, you know, navigating through the system a year older with Braden and Lawyer and all the pieces. I think that it allowed him.
Hoffman's a sophomore too.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it allowed him to, you know, kind of pick his spots with Colvin, with Heidi. And I would not be surprised if it was intentional that, you know, I was worried that the bench and the rotation was restricted too much to 6 or 7. And unless it was a blowout, you wouldn't see them. But it's really not been that. They've been very, very much in the game plan. And I wonder if that was intentional, knowing how long the season is.
Yeah.
That they did not hit the wall because he watched it firsthand happen. And in my opinion, it was the single biggest reason that there was not success. And there's a lot of benefit if you have the right players. And I do think that Colvin and Heidi are those kind of players where they're eager, they understand they're on a special team and their ego is not so big that as long as he's having these conversations, like your time is going to come and it's going to come this year, you just have to be ready. And they're sitting back and watching these things, watching these spots, watching Gillis, watching, when they'll be going in for the game. And if there were stretches of games where they didn't get playing time, they were still engaged on the bench and they were watching if they were getting in, saving their legs, preventing them from hitting a wall, preventing them from injury, and building their confidence in other ways, just cerebrally, being ready for the moment. I would not be shocked, you say playing chess, if that was one of his chess moves to start extending their minutes at the beginning of the tournament, which is crazy. And then the other thing it does for you, the unintended consequence, or maybe intended consequence, they have not been scouted much at all, if any.
Not really.
Yeah. Heidi had a couple spike games. I mean,
they don't really get mentioned. Like when you see these people talk about the comparisons and this, because I've heard a lot of this talk about like, well, Gonzaga's way better and they play like than they were earlier that game. And it was one of the worst 3-point shooting games they had. They had a period where they missed like 16 threes in a row.
Yeah.
So, but look back, it was their fourth worst of the season, and it was Purdue's worst 3-point game.
Yeah.
So if you think, even if you take those into consideration, now, and Colvin actually had some threes. Lawyer had 0 points. And the thing about it was, they were able to scout for Lawyer, and then we were able to scout for Colvin that game, and Colvin beat him up with some shots. And the thing about it is, because Colvin can get his own. Not that Lawyer can too, but in a different way. Colvin can get his own, and you can't, if you have someone out there that's hitting the clip he's been doing, or Heidi or Gillis, these other people, you can't commit another person down to Edie on that spot. It's pick your poison all season long.
Yep.
But you had no scout on him. So now it's like Mark Q's a hell of a coach. So they might have some sort of scout, but you can't scout 8-9 people. You can't, you have to give something up. You can't, and Gonzaga's not really as deep as Purdue. Yeah. And so, but I hear a lot of these people, it's like, they're like, well, Gonzaga was up by 5 and at one point up by 9 in that game. And that was all true. Remember, I was actually at Disney World with my wife, and I had to get my phone because like there was a little bit of downtime there. And so I got my my phone just so I could kind of keep an eye on what was going on, And so, rather than the score tracker, I had the game on to go check it out. And I looked at it and it's like, man, we're like 1 point down 9 points. And I knew we were down at halftime. And I'm like, well, Gonzaga's really, really good. Even though they lost people, they got a great coach, and all of a sudden, like we went on like a pretty big run, took the lead and kind of like took over the game. And neither one of the teams shot very well. So this will actually be a way more efficient game. But if you, and obviously, who knows what's going to happen? Gonzaga's a very good program. But the funny thing is like only 1 or 2 pundits have said a word about Colvin or Heidi being an impact in this game. And because everybody's like, well, Gonzaga's really improved since the beginning of the year. And the thing about it is, with the exception of playing at Kentucky and St. Mary's twice, and then now these 2 tournament games, like they had not played anybody really that great. I mean, and honestly, Kentucky's got a lot of faults. And that game was very, very close, and Gonzaga still were pulled away. Some of that was probably just because, like, Kentucky made a lot of bad decisions. So if you make bad decisions, whether you're at home or you take that bad shot, teams with a high basketball IQ, they take advantage of that stuff. It falls into that category. But if you look at it, they lost 2 or 3 games to St. Mary's. They lost 1 later, in the tournament. And so, like, at St. Mary's, look at them now, they're out right away in a tournament game. And I understand that was a little helter-skelter. But, so they're a very good team. And then
we'll get to that.
What?
We'll get to that. St. Mary's is a very good team.
Yeah, very good team. And
they went up against pros.
Yeah, that did not hurt. And they were playing, it's a long story. We'll get to that. But, so anyways, Gonzaga they look because now the thing is now they start 3 big guys and then they have Nimhart, so like their team's a little different. They still only go 7, maybe 8 deep, 7.5, however you want to look at it, deep. But they start 3 big guys, and like because of their inside presence, they're going to probably play Purdue straight up that way against Edie. Be like, hey, we'll just let him do whatever, and then let's just not let the other people do this stuff, which is all great in theory. But now we've got like Lance Jones. He had a decent game. But Warrior had a very poor shooting game. Of course, he followed that up and killed Tennessee in the next game. So it's like, and Warrior's been really playing well the last several games now. Honestly, he's been a major factor. The thing about it is like Warrior gets scouted, and like they're scouting. Another thing is like, look at what Kaufman Wren has been doing. Kaufman Wren, and I saw him in the interview after the game. He's like, he cared about winning to the point like last year. He's like, he really had a lot of self-reflection. It's like, what could I do differently to help the team out? Because he's like, our team last year, he was like, was ridiculous. Very good team. Never should have been in that situation. And I think with Matt Planer playing Kaufman Wren and Edie at the same time, that high-low game is a different situation. That was just beginning in that game against that was a very new product and not very good when we played Gonzaga the first time. That's something they have to like add to their scouting now. You've got Kaufman Wren where like people spend so much time on Edie, the Kaufman Wren beats you up on the board, kills you on the glass. When Gills comes in, he crushes like all of our guards crush the glass too, crash the glass. So it's a situation where with this whole Gonzaga situation upcoming, what they're not understanding is that like, guys like Heidi and Colvin have come on, and Heidi and Colvin would start for most teams in the whole country. I mean, they're very good. I mean, they're very, very, very good. So if you start breaking down like who can do what versus this and that as far as the talent, Purdue has way more talent than Gonzaga. It's not very close in my
opinion. Like, they have 8 starters. Purdue has 8 starters. 8 starters meaning they could start for any team in the country.
And obviously, this game's in Detroit. Another bus trip for Purdue. Obviously, not the hour-long bus trip. This is going to be 75%, 80% Purdue crowd because Purdue has known that they're going to be in Detroit for like 2 months.
Yeah.
I mean, if they went, like they bought up tickets to Indianapolis and tickets to Detroit because we've known for months, month and a half, 2 months, we're going to most likely be a 1 seed and be in the Midwest because of where the best 3 teams all year long have been like basically UConn, Connecticut, Purdue, UConn, and Connecticut. And so the thing about it is like we've all know what region we're going to go to, so we've scooped up tickets to this thing a long time ago. I mean, for a lot of Purdue fans, I know for a fact, and I know they're. I think they bust up there this morning, but it's in Detroit. We made that trip up to like basically the same area to go and like playing Michigan. We didn't play at Michigan State this year, but another NBA arena they're playing in where the Pistons play.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so but going back to the Utah State thing, as far as like handling it, like we were really synced up in that game, and you can just see that Purdue is on a mission. Like they are not. Like they felt like they won by 28, and then that game by 39. And Purdue could have just picked a number, and we could have won that game by 60 points. I mean, there's 55. If we would have just kept starters in for till like the 5-minute mark of the game, that would have been maybe one of the worst beatings in NCAA tournament history. And Utah State is very good.
Yeah,
it's broke their spirit. So going back to the Gonzaga thing, so Gonzaga. They lost to St. Mary's. They won at Kentucky, which basically is what got them in the tournament. Obviously, clearly they ended with a 5 seed, so they got seeded to probably what their talent is. But they beat McNeese, which was everybody's like darling team. But if you look at who McNeese played, they played somebody like something school for the women.
Yeah,
one of the wins. And they played. They have a coach that can do some stuff, and it's like. Go look at their schedule. It was garbage. So it's like you can't. So they win that game, and they looked at it as motivation, like we're the team that shouldn't be here. So they flipped out of motivation, And then they play a team in Kansas that is completely a shell of itself from even like a month ago. And Kansas has had problems all season long, for that matter. If they played outside of their home, if they're outside of their home court, they had been mediocre at best, even when they had their people. In my opinion, maybe above mediocre, but not a great Kansas team. You could tell that right away. They had a lot of flaws, a lot of holes. So my thing was honestly, as a Purdue fan, we all kind of want to play Kansas because we knew we were going to Gonzaga beat them bad. I mean, I think if Purdue was playing Kansas right now without McCullough, I mean, bro, we might 40 piece them. I mean, it would be maybe Kansas was winning that game at halftime because they shot 65% from 3-pointers, 3-point range in the first half. And so obviously Gonzaga was the better team. It's just they were able to take a lead, take advantage. But it's to be very honest with you, so they're going to be a trendy pick to look really, really good in this game. But if you go look at the body of work between the two teams, it's not even comparable. I mean, they're very good. They hit a bunch of threes, and we don't. That's certainly it's gonna be a tough game. They're very talented. Mark Few's they're a different team now because they play three bigs now rather than just one or two in the game at once. So they've changed what they do. But I think people are grossly underestimating what Purdue looks like when they're. And the thing about it is with that depth, we'll bring in waves, and yeah, you might try and slow down Braden Smith or whatever else, but it's but what Edey does, he just can. And there's a chance, obviously, even with 2 or 3 bigs playing at all times, 3 big, we get a couple of those guys in foul trouble, and it's what are the odds that Gonzaga can win the game if Edey gets 2 of their bigger players in foul trouble? It's basically none, in my opinion. Obviously, maybe they get Edey in foul trouble. I mean, they, whatever. Maybe the third guy kind of takes advantage of maybe Fletcher Warrior on the defensive end here and there. But you watch this team, they asked Edey questions about that game afterwards, in the post game, and they're like, well, what is your satisfaction? Are you satisfied that you've done this, this, and this? And Edey's no, we're not satisfied at all. I didn't come back here to get to the Sweet 16. So when you watch them play, and it seems like it's all business. And I mean, this is in my opinion, this is the best Purdue's looked all season. I mean, we've looked very good in spots.
Yeah.
But you can tell now, and I think that's why that lull of that Big Ten tournament, I wasn't even worried as a fan. You weren't worried as a fan. They lose to Wisconsin. Third time they play them. Wisconsin's going to try and ugly it up a little bit. And honestly, I'm sure Purdue wanted to win the game, but they did not treat that as if it was an NCAA tournament game, which I think Wisconsin did, which is good. But I would only think if they were to play Wisconsin tomorrow and it was for the right to go to the Elite Eight, we're by 15 or 20 points because we're just on another level of what we want to do.
I think obviously, and we'll get a quick preview, but here shortly. But I think that one thing from the past weekend that stood out to me is Lance Jones had a really bad 2 games shooting wise. He did a couple things here and there, but so I think that just the type of play he's not gonna mentally, I think he's even keel, so he's not going to get down. He's not going to get in the sling. He's still going to shoot his shot. He's still going to have the trust of his teammates to take shots. But I think that scouting him from a Gonzaga standpoint, I think that it's likely that he's overlooked because he had such a rough couple of games offensively. And I would not be shocked if you see him, with one of his better games offensively.
I'm a firm believer that Lance Jones will straight up win a game for Purdue in this tournament.
And if I had to bet, I think it's this one coming off of 2 rough ones.
Yeah.
You're running out of games here that it could be, and I agree with you completely. I just think that I love he has struggled. I mean, there was an air ball at one point that I remember. There's, just some turnovers here and there. but you look at him and his body language, and he's engaged. There's no drop off in that. So he's not, in my opinion, just dealing with players and what I look for and who I need to pull aside real quick to pick him up as a coach. He's not that. Like, he's engaged, and I have that gives me all the confidence in the world. Like, he's still a threat, and I think that he's dangerous because I think that it would be easy because you do have to scout definitely 5 players. In reality, 6 to 8. You really have to understand what they do, and I think that it would be easy to be like, oh man, this Heidi kid came off the bench, and look at this and this and this. And if there's going to be a benefactor, if they do go that deep in their scout, I think that Lance Jones is the one that can be the benefactor to any kind of lack of scouting, just because he can get his own shot. He creates for others as well as needed. So I think that offensively, I think you're going to see a really good game from him.
He always plays hard as hell.
Yeah. And
you look at defensively, he played really well that game, and he, he banks in that 3 to end the half.
Yep.
He's done. He did that out in the alley, and I think it might have been against Marquette, I think it's Marquette. And then the championship of that, and the halftime. And then, but he also made the first 3-pointer. I rewatched that game. Made the first 3-pointer in that second half, where we just you and I were talking. I was like, if they get an 8-0, 10-0 run to open the second half, this game's done. And they did. And it was it wasn't even the first immediate timeout. It was 2 minutes in the game, and we already had a 60-point. I think it was up to 25. It's it's done. It's done. They already had piss poor body language. You knew they weren't coming back. You know what I'm saying? And I really have a lot of respect for Mark Few and Gonzaga. I think if sometimes it's taken 5 or 10 minutes, and actually the last 2 years, Gonzaga was actually leading the game at some point in the game at halftime, or not halftime, but halftime this past year. But last year, when they won out there, the PK Hill Night Classic out there that Purdue won as well in Portland, so down home game for them, just down the road from them, basically, not far away from them. We were, of course, they were ranked really high, and we were ranked, below that. That's what really bumped us up by winning that thing. I think we went unranked to top 10 fast.
Yeah.
But we won against an amazing field again. Beat them, beat Duke. And I was I think somebody else. We beat them in Duke and West Virginia. So we beat West Virginia, beat Gonzaga, beat Duke. Virginia was borderline ranked at the time, and Gonzaga was ranked top 10, and Duke was ranked top 10. And so we bang, bang, bang. And, so at that point, Edie's still coming around who he was last year, very early in the year. But I've got a lot of respect for Few and Gonzaga, and they're going to play really, really hard. But I'll just say, if they do not shoot threes well, and they get in any kind of foul trouble with Edie, this thing could get sideways for them big time. And I think Lance Jones will be on them hard. I'm not really sure. I know Braden and Smith and him kind of lock up. I don't know what they'll do. Maybe I don't know how they'll play that defensively. Maybe Nemhard will be guarding Smith, but I don't know if that'll be the other way. Maybe it will. I'm not sure. But I think if you get and honestly, Smith really he shot first game he finished and shot better. But Smith hasn't really shot the ball great in the tournament yet either.
No.
Not that, of course, he'll be scouted or whatever, but those makes are coming, and what he does is going to be available. That if you drop off and you do that, or he just is a very good facilitator. But I literally think that there's a very reasonable chance that this thing gets away from Gonzaga, because I think if Gonzaga was front running in that game and we had come back and take the lead, and then year before, same thing that kind of happened. We've not played one yet where Purdue has a lead on Gonzaga. And I think you get this particular Purdue team right now, the way they're playing and their mindset, and you get them, if you get down 12, 15 points to them now, I think you're in a lot of trouble, because I just think that they're going to just go right back. It's just, it takes so much energy to come back when you're down 15 to a guy and you throw the ball in the post, and now it's TKR time as well. Or I just think at the end of the day, how many 4-star players is Purdue throwing out there?
Yeah.
The two that aren't are one of the best point guards in the country and the best player in the country. Everybody else is like a 4-star player. I mean, I think where, but Kaufman Wren, I mean, Caleb First, has had to sit back on a roll, but Ethan Ward was like a high end three. These are like Cam Heide was player, Mr. Basketball in Minnesota. Doesn't start. Braden Smith, Mr. Basketball in Indiana. He does start, obviously. You have Ethan Warren, Mr. Basketball, like in state of Pennsylvania. I mean, think about that. These are the best players in there. Like, it's just, and some of those people don't start. I understand that, people grow and this, that, the other thing, but like everybody else on the whole team is a 4-star recruit. And Colton, and some of those are like 3/4, but it's like these guys can play.
Yeah.
Copper and Wren first, they were very highly coveted. Mr. Basketball too. I think one of them, first was
Mr. Yeah.
First was.
Yeah.
Wren was runner up, and he should have been. He probably lost it to Smith. So no.
Yeah.
Wrong class. But it's just, I don't know. As far as that goes, we looked really, really good. I think we played better people than we got credit for. Like I said, and Gonzaga's going to look really good, and they still won by some margin. But they played like a team that they felt disrespected by, and another one where it was a very broken Kansas team. I mean, no one had Kansas going far in this tournament. Most people had to lose in the first game or certainly the next game. And so, yes, I give them a lot of props. 9 straight Sweet 16s is damn donkulous. That is epically impressive. If you're Gonzaga, that's crazy. Mark Hughes never missed an NCAA tournament as coach. Gonzaga never. That's also nuts. So he can clearly coach, but I think will be a little bit too much for him, personally. He better be. This is a team that I think they're capable of, just like they have been when it really matters. Not to mention Purdue's 7-0 versus the entire Sweet 16 by far the best record. 2 wins against Illinois, and then you've got Marquette, Arizona, Alabama. Who am I missing? Tennessee and Gonzaga. So they want to beat them up. They all the teams already. So, anyways, that might put a wrap on the Purdue part of that. We did hit a nice little bet on Utah State. It was great being around like all those Purdue fans down there, being just a few blocks from where the game was, going off at. And this is great to be back this weekend. But it was just good to. It was like I watched Purdue play since I was little, obviously since 5, 6, 7 years old. Years, like 4 decades now, basically. And I have never seen. I've seen a lot of good Purdue teams, and we've been like number 1 seed, I think, like 5 times. I've seen a lot of good Purdue teams, and I don't think I've ever seen one. Like, first of all, for Purdue to win a game by like 30 in the first round would be a lot, and they didn't do that as a 1 seed. One time they lost. One time they damn near almost lost to Western Carolina, way back in the days too. They were almost the first by 2 decades, 3 decades of doing it. I remember watching that game with Adam. And we were like, kill us if we lose this game and get that honor thing. Can't, but then, fast forward and we end up doing that. At least we weren't the first.
Yeah.
But so anyways, I've seen us like really, really good teams. And like, I remember like when we had Robbie Hummel and those guys, we played Baylor. And we were like a small dog or something like that in that game, and we like steamrolled them by I think like 16 or 18, and that was a great athletic, that's a very talented Baylor team as well. But we won that game, and I'm thinking like, man, this feels great to be in a game where like you're gonna win the game with like 8 minutes left. Like that's and it's like a tournament game or some game. A lot of times I'm pretty like we know the game is over. That feels good. It was like watching like a couple of years ago when we went to the Elite Eight. We played Villanova that second round, and Carson went bananas And we had Villanova down to like 35 points at one point in the first half, or 28, where it was just like, bro. I mean, it's nice sitting there and watching the game. And you're like, man, we're gonna probably. I mean, there's almost no way we can lose. I mean, like, and you're watching Utah State, and it got to that threshold. You're like, this game is, Grambling got that same way. And I can't recall ever watching Purdue play 2 tournament games and thought like, these bitches are over. I mean, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I just, like that's never happened. So this is, I think it's a pretty special squad. So let's just hope we carry it on.
What it feels like. That's what it feels like for the Blue Bloods. So
it does.
Get used to it. All right. Number 4 for me was watching Michigan State on Thursday. I know that you liked them a lot. But
a lot too.
Huh?
I think you liked them a lot too.
Oh no, I just know talent, like when I see it, like just the eye test, and they're just wildly inconsistent. But I think that you were on it, and you were very confident in an 8-9 matchup against Mississippi State, and it was not close. You get a motivated Michigan State with all their pieces and just something to prove. And they just looked like, I think that it was cool to see just because they showed for one game what their ceiling was. And it just happened to be Mississippi State. But on that day, on Thursday, it could have been anyone in the country, any team in the country, and they could have beat them playing that game. So it's cool to see teams finally play to their best ability, and that's what they did, and it was not close. So it was just the things that we saw over the last 6 weeks with them, up and down, and just like, what are they really, going back and forth. And I think that in many regards we were really saying the same thing. It's just there were outside factors and they were just inconsistent. But to me, watching them, and I'll get to this in a moment, but like watching them play a complete game, obviously at the time they were playing, there were other games going on and it got out of hand, but I just kept watching them, in Buffalo Wild Wings, when all these other games were going on. To me, what stood out was just the attention to detail on defense, the communication, and then just not settling for shots and using athleticism to get to the rim and second chance points. And these things just, if you do those things and you're talented, it snowballs real quick. And I think that that was cool to see for me, just high level basketball. And then there were so many games where, yes, they were entertaining, but part of the reason they were entertaining was because there was such terrible fucking low IQ plays by the other team that made for exciting ups and downs and comebacks. Like, that's a double-edged sword to me. Like, yeah, this is a fun time of the year, but like a lot of that is gifted because there's just terrible in-game basketball IQ. And I think that Michigan State game against Mississippi State, for me, just as a basketball fan of how the game is played, that was cool to see just because it was such a complete game.
They were on it. They were a wagon.
And yeah, and I think that was cool to see, but that kind of gave us confidence going into the next game, North Carolina, that you see them, and I really do mean they could have beat anyone. If North Carolina was playing them on Thursday and they had it going like that,
they're out of the tournament.
North Carolina loses by 15 points, after playing the foul game.
And even in the second round game, Michigan State smacked them worse than Mississippi State, and that game was in Carolina.
Yeah,
and it was just like you have that Tom Izzo kind of switch, and the talent like they're believing. But I think North Carolina's wherewithal, and then they still didn't really run away and hide until like the last 7, 8, 9 minute, 8 minute timeout really of the game. I don't think it didn't seem like it's over until about 6 minutes left, but because Michigan State made a hell of a run to open up the second half to cut that to like 1 point. I think it was like 50-49 or something like that, and it got like, we were trying to find a place to watch the game. That was kind of its own debacle because we were trying to come back from Lafayette, and then places you want to go were just too busy. So it's like we're trying to like watch the game and lock in, and we had big plans for the rest of that evening that obviously got shunned a little bit with that alone. But like they were, as far as a talent level, I felt like that alone was what kept them in the game against North Carolina. But they weren't making that shots. They made a couple of bad plays there, and then North Carolina's got a lot of I think they're like one of the older teams in the country. They've got like a lot of experience.
Yeah,
and even though Michigan State has experience, it wasn't necessarily good experience because they didn't. They have had a hard time finding a way to win the games when they get close like that. They haven't been able to year long.
Just inconsistent.
But North Carolina clearly losing, the way they did in the ACC championship. That obviously it turns out, NC State's pretty good. They came on strong when they had all their healthy players there, but you just get in a situation where it's like I have not been overly impressed when I watched North Carolina. Sometimes they look good, sometimes they look like I don't know, but they were definitely interested in being, and then all got rolling for them pretty well too. And when things are going well, and honestly, when they took that lead away from Michigan State so abruptly, it was kind of like that was a huge thing.
Yeah,
but if it would have been a slow process to get back in the game, that might go quite a bit differently. But when you go on that big 17-0 run or whatever it is that erases a debt and a huge you've got deficit, they're at 12, and all of a sudden the next thing they're up 9 or something. It's like that's devastating. It's just and it gives you all the confidence in the world. Plus you're playing in front of your home crowd there, and it's just it didn't take them any time at all when they started getting some plays going, and I think it was some missed assignments like Michigan State closing out on threes. But then it was like they were making the tough shots, and Michigan State was not making tough shots. And that right there is a huge swing and on runs, you know what I'm saying? But North Carolina obviously was very good in that game. But in the first game, Michigan State really came to play. I was not surprised one bit. It was one of my stronger feelings of the whole day. And usually I don't get those right out of the get-go like that. Usually actually start out pretty slow and then kind of pick up as it goes on. And one thing I could say, if you're wagering or if you've got games, if there are not a lot of whole upsets on Thursday, there's always a ton on Friday. Or almost sometimes there's a bunch on Thursday, there's still a bunch on Friday. But if sometimes things aren't going the way you think you're going to go on Thursday, wait till the later sessions, wait till Friday, and everything you think. So don't second guess yourself. Everything you think that you thought would happen, if you really do the research, usually ends up happening the next day. It just happens when the games get played. It doesn't go in line with how you wanted to bet or do whatever else. But I was willing. I haven't told you before that game. I was willing to put our whole bankroll on Michigan State to win. I felt that good about it. And in hindsight, maybe we should have, because we would have had a pretty healthy nest egg. But it would make for a very quick, sad tournament as far as what we were willing to do, because if we did that whole thing and it goes wrong, we're kind of well, that's been fun. Now we're just going back to ordinary Joes watching a basketball game, so maybe that's not the worst of the world, but that's not what we want to do. That was not our goal. So, anyways.
Yeah, it was up and down, kind of two opposite, polar opposite games. Not really polar opposite, but just up and down. It's fun to watch them. It was exciting to watch good basketball, and then we put some shekels on them to do well for us and didn't work out. Caused us to, we thought we were riding high on the way to watch some Michigan State basketball with some phenomenal pizza at Crafters, and we ended up with Michigan State shitting the bed and having the worst pizza we've ever ate at Joe's. Just fucking Not good, but memorable. That's what this is. Top 5, my top 5 memorable moments. Like, I'm not going to forget that. Like, when I think of Michigan State or North Carolina now, I'm going to have a bad taste in my mouth, literally. That fucking pizza was gross, son.
And sad thing is, if Michigan State would have won, it'd still be gross. But
maybe we would have had fuck you
pizza
pizza money.
better. It would have tasted better. Fine establishment, otherwise, not so much there.
I mean, I guess. My number 3 was, just amongst teams watching a collection of professional basketball players masquerade as college athletes in Grand Canyon, play in a very weak conference. They were 29-4 coming into the tournament, ran roughshod. I couldn't tell you who they lost to, but I don't know. Actually, I can. They lost that. South Carolina.
Tournament team.
Yeah. And then just random teams within their conference, but like they won their conference easily. And the games I watched, the highlights I watched, they pop off of the screen. Like, they are athletes, they play their ass off. I think that a lot of times you get athletes and they're good players and they take play inconsistent. Michigan State, perfect example of that. That's not what I saw when I watched Grand Canyon. I see them getting after it every play. They don't always make good plays, like high IQ basketball plays, but they hustle. They play the right way as far as their effort level. And
they don't run. I mean, maybe they did. I was watching. I'm not sure that game we actually watched. We watched them play Alabama, but they did not run offense against Alabama.
No. They got into a spot where they were trying to. They were running ISOs, and in their defense, there was good spacing, but it was just poor execution several times, back to back to back. And I'm sure that if they watch the film, they're gonna hate it because.
I think if they played that game 10 times, it probably would 8.
I agree. I think
Alabama's like good, and Sears played amazing. He's a damn good guard, one of the best guards.
Yeah.
And they actually play like sort of helter skelter, so it's like, but you're almost like playing in Alabama's hands because they're very athletic and can really shoot too. So they're actually better at shooting than them, and then they're, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Neither one really seemed to go out of the way to play. I mean, I can't say Grant. So they both played high athletic, like block shot defense, go get rebounds defense. But I'm talking about like letting the guy, like, they don't play like great on ball defense, or assignment defense. But athletically, if you get around the corner, they'll block your shot. And
I feel like they play phenomenal point of attack defense, and I think
way below they kept these teams like below that they normally score, or at least for long periods of time. But they just, when you don't run any offense, it gives you, like, it really hurts you on the defensive end because you can't get back. Like, it was helter skelter, kind of a ref show, a lot of fouling going on. There's the very sequence of the second game. I mean, they overwhelmed, St. Mary's with some athleticism. But the second game they played, when they played out, Grand Canyon played Alabama, there was a sequence where Alabama had basically a 5-point play with like under 3 minutes, and that was a devastator to them because then that hurt because they had a 1-point lead, and then after like one sequence because of the foul on the basket and an and one on the actual thing, so like 2 fouls on the play and an and one, they went up like 4, and it was almost like they could not recover from that because it was like one tough shot not in, Alabama rebound, now you get in this foul game, and like and they just because I'm doing too much ISO ball, hero ball. But so you're right. They look at the film. I bet they're going to wish that they just kind of had their heads about them and calmed down because that game was there for the taking from the win, which is a real shame because they win that one. We are up monstrously. We were 5-6 games, half points situations where, bro, we would have just cleaned house. We did well, but like we could have just buried. I mean, we would have done some damage. You know, we were right there, man. We were all the way to the twig and the Mons. We were playing Mons. We were playing Mons ball.
But that is memorable to me as far as the first 2 rounds. Like Grant Foster is a lottery pick. He's a 6'7" combo guard that almost cares more about defense than offense. It's just rare, and he's very skilled offensively.
He's very good.
He's incredible to watch. McLaughlin, undersized guy, but like I think he's kind of the heart and soul of that team, and communicated on defense, and they keeps a white boy. And Duke Brennan. So I just think they're a fun team to watch. I loved watching them. I was interested. I had zero doubt they were going to beat St. Mary's. It was a terrible draw for St. Mary's. I've been on St. Mary's. I loved their experience in the tournament.
That's what they do when they make these brackets.
Yeah. I just think it was a travesty the way the seeding to have Grand Canyon in as a 12 seed that won their conference, but they were 29-4. And it just tells me, did you really watch them? Like the pieces that they have, you couldn't have put them on the 10 line at least. That's crazy to me. And what it did is it really, I mean, St. Mary's didn't have a chance athletically. They were going to have to go unconscious from deep and
really try and slow the game down, which they're able to do. But you know, when people get that athletic and active, like,
you can slow it down all you want. They're just going to take the ball from you. They're going to jump in the lane and they're gone. And now it puts pressure on you to start taking shots that you don't want to take, and you're not dictating pace anymore.
It was like that team would steal. That game was like really sloppy.
Oh yeah.
Like when they both like steal one, they'd steal like just bad, like pass loose of the ball. Like if you're loose to the ball dribbling Grand Canyon, and they took it well. Yeah, it was ridiculous.
No.
I mean, they were. I mean, Robbie Hummel, I think calling that game.
He was in shock.
This is wild. Like it's just like this is. It was fundamentally not pleasing whatsoever. But as far as like a track meet, like watching two teams just like, holy crap, the talent and the athleticism is just
but I feel like, I mean, I know what you're saying, but like, I really don't like, if you watch the game, they were competing, like, and that's what you want. Like, I think that there's a scenario like where they could settle for shots and they don't compete on defense like that. And Alabama wins that game, you know, is up 20.
I think they were playing. In fact, I think Alabama was playing some of the best defense they played all season.
Exactly. It pushed Alabama to a point where they are probably in a good spot against North Carolina.
It's like Alabama, honestly, from that standpoint, it's like they're gonna like, that's a team similar to them in some ways. Maybe not they're better 3-point shooting team, but it's like, you know, where a team like where you just have like one really good big, or a team like Purdue where it's like, we've got enough pieces, like we're not going to like beat ourselves, and we got a lot of talent. And so it's almost like James Thompson, Grand Canyon beat themselves in that game.
Oh yeah.
And that's where,
yeah,
honestly,
Alabama leaves this game feeling fortunate that they were able to get Grand Canyon in some spots where they took some ill-advised possessions. And
North Carolina's not going to beat themselves, so you can.
There's that, but Carolina also is not going to present the kind of crazy matchups that they're not going to have to contend with that much athleticism, believe it or not.
No, I mean, that'd be the most athletic game they play.
I don't think that I think that Alabama comes out of this game, it not relieved, but like, you know, that you were tested, and I don't think that Carolina has it in them to play that high level of deep, not high level, but just they're not going to
high level against Michigan State, and they have plenty of talent.
Yeah, but I think the Michigan State's inconsistent. They're up and down. There were stretches of the game where Michigan State. What I'm saying is I think that Grand Canyon for every second of that game, they were competing on the defensive end, where Alabama really had to work through that game and probably came out of the game better for it.
I think
more prepared.
I think Baycott's a tough matchup for Alabama.
I agree, but man,
they're not that great they're not great inside.
Baycott is a tough matchup, but he's the kind of guy where he's not going to. If you can put a body on him, which you can afford to do, you can neutralize that. I think that Michigan State got in trouble because they gave up so many offensive rebounds.
I think personally, North Carolina's matchup against Alabama is on the defensive end.
I just don't think I mean, we can go there, but I think North Carolina wins this game, but I think that
they might not cover.
Yeah, exactly. I think that Alabama being tested and playing that kind of game against Grand Canyon is the kind of game where they get locked in.
Yeah, and we'll get to that point later. I got a little nugget about some of that stuff too, and I don't disagree with you actually.
Yeah.
They won't play another. They probably won't play a team more athletic than what they just played. So
yeah,
certainly not at 2 or 3 positions.
But Grand Canyon to me, I have it on this list just because they were so fun to watch. And like back in the day, you would play like NCAA basketball or football, and then you'd have like the, for me it would be like the 01, the 2001 Miami Hurricanes. If you're playing football, like just unbelievable fun team to play on a video game. If you had an NCAA basketball team, I'm picking Grand Canyon, the 2024 Grand Canyon, because they are loaded athletically 1 through 5, and they're a cheat code. It was just fun to watch.
They literally looked like a Memphis Calipari team.
Yeah, they look like the fucking Monstars in Space Jam is what they look like to me. Their length is crazy.
Conversation. Yeah, they were. Yeah. But you don't. The thing is like you don't usually have a team when they're like an 11 seed of that like small conference that has like 2 pros on it.
12 seed.
Yeah, 12 seed.
It's crazy. There's just travesty in misseeding, in my opinion, because I think the tournament would have been better had St. Mary's gone further.
Well, there's people at St. Mary's kind of coming out of that if they,
But
like Elite Eight, like right. I know people.
There's no doubt in my mind that Grand Canyon was going to handle them, just because Grand Canyon has played St. Mary's level talent all year long and had 29 wins to show for it, and a lot of them were not particularly close. So to me, that
Alabama playing the schedule they did is what helped them win a game like this.
Exactly. And so I was interested to see Grand Canyon, and I was confident, honestly, after I watched them just dispose and, not be scared of the moment. I was confident that, they're a Power 5 talent level team, but what do they really look like against a Power 5 team? That is just it was just a bad game down the stretch for them, but it was nonetheless very entertaining. They made my stomach hurt a few times from laughter at what they were doing on a basketball court. Some of the most entertaining stuff I've seen.
It was literally like the kind of thing that you and I and Adam would be doing like on Miller.
Yeah, mini hoops. They were fun.
So I'm saying, but like it was like you let us run with like some people that are like playing when you're playing like a level down of people that just show up that day to play. You're like,
yeah,
like this is gonna be bad.
It was fun.
9-foot hoops. We were gonna do some terrible things to you. And
there are pros on that team.
What?
There are pros on that team for sure.
Yeah.
The next memory, good, bad, and different, was Sanford, Kansas.
I'll say bad financially.
Oh, it was terrible, but
they covered. But
it's memorable. We were at Buffalo Wild Wings. This is 1 a.m. special.
Yeah, local love field area.
It was just I mean, Samford was down. I think they were down 18 at one point.
Oh yeah, they're 22.
Oh, that's crazy. So yeah, and we
Kansas could not like play any better with who they had. Like it was just like they were like playing out of their mind, you know. And Samford really depends on doing a lot of the, getting out and hitting some threes and that kind of thing. And this wasn't happening for the longest time. To the point where, I know you'd pretty much given up on it. We had them in a monstrous parlay if they to win. Like they win and then 3 other teams win, but it was the first leg of it. But it was also the most difficult leg of it, and it's based on maybe first or second most difficult, But if they would have won, we had like a 14 grand parlay that it would have set us up to win, to win it, or certainly hedge the hell out of it, which we would have done because we had them, we had Northwestern, we had Western Kentucky, and we had James Madison. Now I know Madison was a team that played later in the game, later in the night, but there's a cash out option with MGM, the site we're using, the app we're using. And there I think there's a number of them that have those, but it's one of my first experiences with being on an app that gives you that deal because I'm not done DraftKings and or whatever FanDuel, whatever, because they don't have that where I'm at. So go to Indiana, they have MGM, we're on there. If you put yourself in a position to where they feel we're gonna bite the bullet here, but not the whole way. And so if they win that, and then to Northwestern won their game, which I felt like they ultimately did, which got very close, but they did. And then Western Kentucky was winning at halftime and up 10, 12 points at one point, 10, and then up to 8 at halftime. Now, it's like deal or no deal. They're, MGM's going to offer you a briefcase, and it's going to say $8,000, 7 or 8 grand, 6, 7, 8 grand, take it or leave it. Because there's one more, small 5-point underdog team on a 12-5 matchup yet to play. They're in the business of making money.
Yeah.
So they're going to be because at this point the algorithm's it doesn't look too good. Because that was a 14.5 point spread against Marquette. So if they're winning by 10 at halftime when they're favored by 14.5, they start to they're starting thinking we'll give this guy 7,000 to walk.
Yeah.
And that would have put us in a position of where I could really put the bangers out there like I used to for 4 or 5 a game, pop off because if you start setting us up with that kind of profit, what we went ahead already are on, we start doing 5, maybe 1,000. I would be I will lock into whatever, Fridays, late games or whatever, or Saturdays, whatever. I'll pick my 3 favorite games on a parlay, put 1,000 on it, and we're just gonna wreck some shit, or where it's gonna get dumb. And if you hit that, it's gonna get just outrageous. So, anyways, Sanford, Kansas are watching this. They grind themselves back in the game, and then you take it from there as it kind of got close. Very controversial game play at the end.
Yeah, no, we were watching the game,
kind of walking out knowing
Kansas was up double digits at one point. We go to the bathroom to before hitting the road, and all of a sudden Samford Cup gets a stop, bucket, cut it to 5.
And interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. And then the just back and forth. I think they get it down to 1 after a baseline out of bounds play, a stack, misdirection, hit the 3 in the wing on the wing.
Yeah, and really quickly too.
Oh yeah, and clearly the momentum and Dickinson didn't look right, just gas, shoulder bothering him, all this stuff, and they're playing injured as it is, and you just see this comeback Samford, they shot terrible for a very long stretch of the game, and they didn't play terrible. They didn't play bad. They just shot terrible for a very long stretch of the game. And you kind of saw Stanford like, okay, now our shots falling. Like the regression to the mean is here. And now, like in crunch time, sucks for you. Like I've seen it happen 1,000 times in the NBA, and it's just basketball. Like if you pretty much are who you are, you know, if you can have good habits and stay within striking distance in a game, and you're having a terrible shooting game, and you're still defending, you're attacking the rim, you're getting to the line,
winning basketball.
You still you still take those shots when they're there, and you're not settling for shots. You are who you are. You're going to regress to the mean, and those are going to start falling. And that's what happened. And just what happened is it culminated to just a terrible, terrible call. Down one, I think, fast break. Kansas, takes it, breakaway.
Guy makes an incredible recovery.
Recovers, tracks it, clean block. And I really don't even blame the ref. I mean, obviously he made the wrong call, but like I don't think it was egregious. Like, we got to get Kansas to move on here. He was just anticipating the call. Like, in no way, like LeBron is not on the court here. Like, there's no way this kid should be able to physically make that ground up and block this clean. He saw the kid on the rim,
and then as he's trying to dunk it, grabs on, but because momentum swings him off.
Yeah.
Falls hard. Looks bad.
It looks bad. And part of him was anticipating the call, like they're going to have to foul here because he don't want to give up a layup. Maybe he can prevent. It was just bad. To me, that's the biggest proponent for a review, and I know that can slow the game down, and then you start putting in, the guesswork into it. But like, man, you just hate to see the cleanest block you're going to see and a great play.
And they corral the rebound.
Yeah,
like 15 seconds left, so they have it now. They have the minimum arena. Now it's 5-on-4.
Mm-hmm.
They have the ball going back their way. All the momentum down one.
I'm trying to remember what the time was at that point.
14 seconds left.
Yeah,
when that happened.
It sucks.
Because now the thing is, the guy makes 2 free throws. You're still down 3, so you're in. And they didn't get a quality possession. But like that's the other part of it. They get the rebound. That's a run out.
Yeah.
5-on-4. You have all the momentum. So it's almost like the defense doesn't have time to like.
Oh no, they wouldn't be. They wouldn't be able to. I wouldn't be surprised if they did. I don't know what the foul situation was, but it might be a situation where
you drive to the rack.
You got to foul.
Yeah, I mean, will you drive to the rack or like But
yeah,
one of the things where you drive to the rack and if it gets fouled up, you kick it out for your 3 and you live with it. You still can foul on a rebound with like 5-6 seconds. Still not over.
You just would have liked to see it play out. Let them play out. Let it play out.
But I think you and I both know if they have that ball there and then they go ahead, especially if it's like a 3 and you're up 2, they win that. Sanford's winning that game.
Oh, they had all the momentum in the world.
In fact, if they just get fouled, they're up 1. I'm not sure Kansas may. I mean, they would have tried something like, who at that point would you be like, I feel confident. You just.
Yeah.
They're already kind of broken, right? So it's kind of like you've got them right where you want them. And, so, but I turned to you and I was like, I know it sounds crazy, but that is going to be a big, like we could get that win, man. We were in like a spot. I mean, a spot's like, and obviously it turned out that was the case. But anyways, pretty good game, good comeback.
Yeah, no, it was just, again, it didn't turn out the way we wanted to, and it was memorable to me.
Yeah,
how that played out.
There were a lot of people, especially because they're all in our region, that really liked McNeese to pull off Gonzaga, and I just never saw that. I looked at their schedule. I'm like, I think you guys are like grossly underestimating how good Gonzaga is. Now I did think that Sanford would beat Kansas, and because Kansas just looks like it looks broken. And clearly, there were some warts because Sanford got, and I think, Gonzaga at that point, it's going to take care of business versus Stanford as well. Just because just that much more talent. But so neither one of us is surprised what Gonzaga did to Kansas. But this was one of those things where it's like, I didn't like that. I didn't have McNeese. I didn't one time think McNeese was going to win that game. That's one of the most upsets in the whole thing. And I'm like, I don't see that at all. But this is one I did see. And I honestly, I think if they played 10 times, I think Sanford might win 3 or 4 of them. I mean, I think they couldn't have shot any worse for like maybe 30 minutes in the game. It was like, I mean, that's, and a team like that has got to shoot the ball well to beat a team, even that's got that much more talent, And that's their bread and butter, like they just, you got the ball's got to go in the basket at some point, no matter how good you are to win the game.
Yeah.
So it just came on a little bit too late, but that was definitely a fun game to watch. And shout out to that chick that had 17 tables in the bar. That was Clown Town. I mean, for whatever it were, it was the struggle bus happened here and there, but I mean, like 17 tables. Like she literally had every table in the whole bar area -2, which is nuts. And she was there all getting paid. So by this time, she's probably ret to go for sure. So that's why we ended up like taking it and watching it like the other part of the restaurant as we're walking out, like we're basically watching like the last 20 minutes of this game.
Yeah.
Like way away from our table. I mean, we were cashed out done for a while. But the game got exciting, so we had to kind of stay. So
yeah. Memorable for sure.
Yes.
More just kind of a quick hitter of these. Nevada Dayton was probably from Nevada the biggest meltdown I've seen. At a 6-minute mark, just stopping any effort to win a game, just playing not to lose.
It was it was
just terrible. It was sad to see. I mean, I feel bad for the kids because the kids obviously had to play the game, but they were clearly playing the directive of a coach saying, "Hey, we're holding the ball the entire possession."
There were like 15 or 16.
Yeah,
it was a lot. I think
17 points. It got close to 20, and then at that 6-minute mark,
I think it was 17 actually. I think it was
17. Yeah.
But it was like one missed 3 away from being like lights out, done deal.
Yeah. Still, and then you just saw that. Well, I think it was after that last media timeout. They came out.
Like 6 minutes left in the game, and I think they were up 6-17.
Yeah.
Right before the very last one. But yeah, I mean, you're thinking like 5.5, 6 minutes. This baby's,
Yeah, and they just
and we're
no ball movement, no movement, just ISO dribble, high ball screen,
bad shot after bad
2 seconds on the shot clock, settle for a jumper, long rebound, and the effort was there to try to get back, but like a long rebound, you're in a bad spot.
Early in the shot clock, crap jumpers. I mean, stuff you could get anytime, and just for no reason, like they didn't move the ball, didn't waste any time. Like, the other thing is like with that much time up 17, if you just take it down to 25, 20, you take 25 seconds off, you get to a point where like they got to score almost every time to be back in the game. If that's all you do with 5.5 minutes left, that's all you got. If that's all you do, you're still up 10 with like 3 minutes left.
Well, I would say half of their possessions, that's what they did. But those possessions where they settled for just terrible shots,
yeah,
they put them in a spot where there were leak outs, and they even if the shooter was getting back, which they were, it put them in a bad spot, and just Dayton was cold the whole game, and then they started hitting incredible shots. It was just kind of a perfect storm where, Dayton was due, kind of what we talked about with Sanford. It was like, Dayton was not that bad of a shooting team, but they shot terrible. That's, how they got down. And then they weren't really defending well, but now Nevada's defending themselves by just taking terrible possessions and shots And now they're starting to hit shots, and then you get a spot where they start gaining confidence, and it got out of control fast.
Like, honestly, it got to where it was like 12, and I looked at you and I'm like, this is bad.
Yeah.
We had a cash out option on this MGM thing, and like we had a parlay, and I'm like, and wasn't sure how, like, because I wasn't familiar with how this app worked, and I didn't know like if that's what you got or you got that plus your original stake back.
Yeah.
And I was at that point, so it looked like it was going sideways, and so now it gets on to like 2 minutes or something, or 3, and they're at 6, 2.5. So it's like, man, they should still probably find a way to win this game. They had to basically like not score, But I was like, looked at them, and I'm like, if I wasn't just giving away like my original $100 investment on this parlay to make sure we win like $600, $700, it was a night, like one of them might have been like, there's a pretty big one, like 13. It was like a 4-figure, parlay hit on a 50, 100, whatever it was. We had a nice parlay going. It was the last leg to get it done. Or it was not the last leg, but it was the next leg, but it was like one of the legs that we knew, like, that's the one I was worried about, because other ones were things like, UConn money, things that are going to happen. But so basically it was a spot where it's like, man, like I wasn't able to get a spot to get like a real good hedge on it, but because I still was waiting on other results. So I couldn't really do that. But we're watching the game. I'm like, it's like they're gonna freaking when they were up 6, and I was like, they're definitely losing this game. And I should have just cashed it out then, but I didn't want to give away that extra because it still was good value for what they were doing. It was like it seemed like a really good offer, and I was almost like I should just cash this out and reinvest it. And I didn't do that because I'm like, it still takes a lot to lose at this point. And they just like, as soon as I saw that train running away with no wheels, no track, it was like, man, that was disgusting because it's like they should have won that game. Would have made one of the brackets we would have had. I didn't have Dayton win that game in either one of the sheets. I thought they were a little bit overrated. And Nevada, for like I said, for a lot of that game was really putting it to them. But they just fell flat on their face. So that was memorable, but just gross at the same time.
Yeah, no, it was.
That one actually was one of the ones that really kind of cost us having X amount of capital to roll on to really have a monstrous weekend. That would have been a nice bump early that really kind of hurt us, kind of stopped us in our tracks a little bit what we wanted to do. But
it's unpopular. I mean, that's just one example of just about every game. There were a couple games that were played at a very high level. Auburn and Yale was a very good game that was just played at a high level. Player limitations, like you're going to see those. Like some of these kids are about to be pros and they're trying to step up. Other kids are, 4-year kids, and they're good players.
That's their last hurrah.
Yeah, and that's cool to see. But I think that the main thing that I think that gets overlooked is like everybody thinks that all these kids are on the same level, and it's just like, oh, it's just they just go out and play the game, and it goes this way. No, there's some really like what makes March Madness is kids are stepping up, but it's so pronounced because there are some really bad fucking IQ plays.
Oh,
and if you're flipping back and forth game to game, like, oh, we're gonna flip over to True TV and look at this game, like it's close. You don't understand how they made an 18-point comeback. Like there was a meltdown. Like that's, to me, I think that's kind of the misconception. But it's also, if you're just sitting and watching it, like you can get frustrated just from if you're a basketball purist, like what the team should be doing. Like it's just, it can drive you insane. I can't imagine could you imagine being a Nevada fan like you are a Purdue fan? Like that would be more frustrating than losing to a 16 seed.
That sadly happened in games but like it is very frustrating when you feel like the game is salted away.
Yeah.
And we have seen.
You would be furious with that coach. You would probably put on a mask and fucking brain that coach with a blunt object. because I don't blame the kids in that spot. They're not trying to lose.
Yeah.
They're a lot of that directive of where these comebacks come from is a coach. They can't grab a hold of the moment. I think the coaching becomes almost as critical as you advance in this tournament as the players.
And I can't remember exactly when they decided to call a timeout in that situation, but it was way too late. I think so the thing about it was like 17, and then like this happened, that happened, and I think it, obviously at some point got to 14 or 12 or whatever. And I think at that point, like a couple baskets made. Let's call timeout while this thing's still double digits.
Yeah.
Like while you can just slow down, breathe, run our offense, don't do a bunch of dumb shit. And I think they finally called. They might have called it before. I could be wrong, but I think they finally called it there. It was like 6. And it went from like 17 to 6 in like 3 bad plays and 3 good plays. It was just pretty fast. A couple of minutes on the clock, and it was like that is devastating because it's like, but like you get in these spots where it's like you can't. And you saw Grambling kind of cut it off, and then when they played Purdue, and in Utah State, where it's like we went on a little bit of that run there, and there's like I got to get this timeout because now the crowd's into it. Now it's like we're down 9, and it's like we can't let this thing get to and obviously it still went off the rails, but like you had to do something, and it's just we just were better. But like in that situation, the teams were evenly enough matched that like if you just get them to refocus up 12, they probably can do enough winning plays to make at least Dayton play perfect. And they ended up getting to the point where they're fouling Dayton with like a minute left, which is insane. At worst, you should be in a situation where it's like 1 or 2 possession game, they're in the foul game on you. Like not to where like you missed a 3 to tie the game, and now with a minute and 10, you're fouling them. Like what the hell happened there? I mean, that's but you can see that 3-minute mark. Like when they were down 6, I was like they're going to lose this game.
Yep.
And they're ahead by 6. They're going to lose the game. It's like they had no chance. And you're up 6. You should have no chance. They had no chance. They had no chance to win the game at that point. It's done. Yeah.
Super frustrating. Kentucky, Oakland. Jack Golke goes for 10 for 20 from 3.
Pretty much.
That's the difference. That's 30 right there. Yeah, 32.
Did they do like a scouting report? I mean,
yeah, it's what you
did well, but it's like
but him going 10 for 20. I mean, we talked about Oakland. I'm familiar with the program. That wasn't even top 5 in the outcomes in my mind. Like gun to my head, like 10 for 20. That's just bad. That's just bad execution, like in the game, like not making an adjustment. Like you said, like at some point you got to run that kid off the line and live with whatever. You live with whatever.
I mean, you can't tell me there's not an athlete on Kentucky that can stay in front of that dude.
Yeah.
To run off. I mean, that's impossible.
Certainly there's probably 8 athletes that could stop that from happening, but I think that Kentucky is what we thought they were, elite offensively. But then you're defending on one side, you're depending on one side of the ball. And I think that defensively, they're just so inconsistent throughout the year. And to their credit, at one point in the year, they were atrocious. And then they turned it around, like going into the tournament. And in a very good conference showing that they could do it. And it's just, again, like this, that's just one of the frustrations with the tournament as a whole. Like you get these variables that they even, they show you who they are and who they aren't. And then they show trends to correct it and kind of reach their ceiling, a la Michigan State. And you think you're going to get that, and it just takes one aspect of the game to just ignore, and the just confidence, the false confidence to be like, we'll still get through it in game is crazy to me.
If you look at the analytics, win a national title, or maybe even to win a national title, you have to have like a top, I think 35 world leagues. In fact, I think to win the whole doesn't have to be Final Four even, more or less, maybe, but but I want to say like if you don't have a top, I think it's like 21 offense and a top like 31, 35 defense, you cannot win. And some of these numbers are like, they're in the hundreds or upper 90. You're not even the thing about it is if you cannot get stops, and that's why, I think Alabama's run comes to an end, but they match up. I mean, they can hang in there, but you got to get. But honestly, if you get people that are both top 10 or whatever else, or top 10 or 15, they almost win it all. They almost win all the time. And there was like a thing been going on for months. Like if you were ranked this in the top whatever, on this date in the poll, that's 100% of the national games in the last 25 years, like February 6th, or if you're in the top 12, you won the national title. Luckily, Purdue's been in every single one of these things when they got all these metrics of like who can win it based on defense, that date, that all these things that are like trends, but it's like there's like 5 or 6 teams that are like in like Purdue, UConn, Houston. So teams have been good all year long. Like some of these are like, I think Creighton might be in there, Tennessee's been, so some of these other teams like have met these metrics. And if you do not have, and and Gonzaga's I think like the 50s as far as like defensive metrics. So it's like that's just obviously this is not going to the Final Four or win the whole thing, but like if you're capable of making stops and you have a high offense, that's you got to be able to score it clearly, But going back, it's a weird tangent, I know. I watched some of that game peripherally. I ended up. So I have a theory that I have seen come true many, many times now, and I just have to remember to employ it from now, or deploy it from now on. And that is like, if nobody talks about a team that's in this anywhere from, you really don't want to say 116, but like 15, 2 seed, maybe probably throw it in there. But basically anywhere from that 15 to anything to be considered an upset, like down to the maybe 8, 9, so 15 through like a 10, like in a game. And nobody talks about that as a possibility. Those upsets almost happen every time. I'm not talking about. So everybody thought Manisa was going to win. They have no chance of winning. That's an example. Like everybody is like, they're going to win this game. Da da da. But it's like the ones where like no one, like I had New Mexico, no one thought Clemson was going to win their game, and they went to work, and here they're still playing in the Sweet 16. Like nobody thought that Oakland could beat Kentucky. It wasn't even like when you're familiar with Oakland, and we both liked them as a team, we thought it sort of was like a crap draw. We're like, man, if it had been about anybody else, we would have probably pulled the trigger on them because we thought like they're probably just going to get engulfed athletically. Like they're going to probably be better coached. They're going to be like not intimidated, but you're like thinking like, what's it going to take for Oakland? Like no one mentioned, not one person thought that, like whatever basically that I ever heard of. Almost nobody thought that Yale could beat Auburn, and we took Yale on the points. We didn't mess around with the Oakland game at all. But it's like, those teams, almost I was on Duquesne. No one really thought, Duquesne, not many people thought Duquesne they weren't on a lot of people's radar for an upset, but I'm like, you put that out there, I'm like, plus 10, take them on the money line. A lot of people think, oh, that's psycho. There's no chance. It's like, well, as soon as you think there's no chance something's going to happen, it happens in this tournament, So I watched that guy hit 3 after 3, and you're watching the game, and you're like, it's too bad we didn't have some on this game because that would have been really, it's the kind of game normally I root really hardcore for. But you're just thinking like, can they really lose this game to these guys? Like with this much, and it's just like, it's sort of been inevitable recently, but that's what I have to say. One guy went nuts. It probably ruined a shitload of people's brackets. There's a lot of people that in Kentucky probably, certainly in the Final Four on a lot, probably a lot as Kentucky is a sleeper, thinking, hey, we're going to get slick. And like I said, I go back to the metrics of these things. If you don't have that elite level offense to match a fairly elite level defense, you're just not good enough to make stops to win. To get, you might win a game or two, but you can only get so far. And so, like, I didn't have them going very far. I think in one I might have them like in the Final Four because that's another weird stuff going on. But I was very close to having NC State beating Kentucky because I was like, if they keep on rolling, but I can get out early mainly, but either way. And then your thoughts on the Oregon game?
This Oregon, they were fun to watch. Much in the vein of Grand Canyon, just standout performers. Cuisinart and Dante were pretty much all they had against Creighton. Gave it their best shot, all-time run for what could have been an all-time run for Jermaine Cuisinart, but just wasn't meant to be. But nonetheless, I think that they were fun.
Tennessee some problems.
Huh?
They would have given Tennessee some problems.
I think I would have picked Oregon in that spot because I think that
I had no way of having them going to the Elite Eight because I knew like if they could do what I thought they could. Because sitting there looking at South Carolina had a good season, but like if you watch the way with Dante and Cuisinart, like they're like, bro.
Yeah, I mean, literally no one scored in the second half in overtime of their game against Creighton. So, I mean, you get any kind of help from anyone else. They were playing at that level prior to that. They had been playing at that level all through the Pac-12 tournament to get to this spot. And obviously in their first game against
they were not in the tournament unless they won that game.
No. And Dante was hurt a majority of the year.
Yeah.
He's a pro. He's a 6'11" pro that plays like a big and is athletic and is a game changer on defense.
He reminds me of like a slightly more physical but more athletic version of like a Trevion Williams. Where like when he went up to go get it for like a dunk or a putback or rebound, I was like, this is rebound. I mean, he's getting the ball and he's putting it back. And he just goes up. He's like, he went up and just like, he'd be going off of like dunks on just off the tip, like not like bringing it back down. Like it's like catch it, slam it, rebound.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
No, he's definitely.
That was our favorite game from a financial standpoint because we had a greasy parlay 3-teamer and Oregon money line was our last leg. And we hit like a $2,400 one on like just a 3-teamer on like, I think it was, I don't know who it was early, but it was a 3-teamer. I know Texas, obviously, they fortunately covered against Tennessee. But I don't know if it was, I can't remember what it was, I could look it up. But anyways, it's out there. I don't know if it's on that pitch, but we had one. The final leg was this Oregon money line versus Creighton because I'm like, if they get in a situation where they can get up, we have an opportunity to cash out for probably a minimum of $1,000 guaranteed for just to sit and watch the game. But I was like, if they get up, I was like, just thinking like, if they could ever get ahead of Creighton, I could get Creighton as the underdog if it's late enough in the game in the last 10 minutes of the game, or if it's a big enough lead to where you can just get a straight hedge, put a few $100s or whatever. I ended up putting like a 6-burger on Creighton plus like 270 to win when they were down 6 or down 4, I think 6. And then it actually bumped up to like when Oregon was up 4 with like 30 seconds left, it popped up to 9-1 on the money line for Creighton. But it was on there just like for a millisecond. I tried to bang that for like a 50 burger or 100, something crazy, thinking like, man, now I just want them to win if we can get that one in. And I only got it in for like $25, so like to add to what we were going to get. But a phenomenal like setup hedge, and we'll get into some of that when we talk about like when you're making parlay bets, like where you're really setting yourself up for something later if you got the capital to back up what you're trying to do. But the Oregon Creighton game was like crazy. And as soon as I was able to get a position on Creighton money line, I actually had to sit back and enjoy the last 4 or 5 minutes of that game because I was like, I knew we were going to win like $2,300 no matter what we did. And there's nothing better than just watching the game than like, you know, I call it the platinum unicorn status when you get when you can only when you win money, a lot of money on the same, no matter what happens in the game, because